Will Murray, it is an honor and a pleasure to have you on the Singletrack Podcast. We're about a week removed from the Havalina Jundred. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Finn.
I think we start with background. I'm curious to know where you grew up, what sport you played, how this all kind of brought you to today.
Yeah, I grew up in Georgia, a little outside of Atlanta. Grew up playing all the sports, but baseball was a big thing. Yeah, I mean, I dreamed of becoming a professional baseball player. Of course, once I got to my junior and senior year of high school, realized that was not going to happen. But yeah, I still loved baseball, and I did run cross country in high school, as well in the fall. But in Georgia, you can play baseball pretty much year round as well. So, but ultimately, running it suited my personality and my lifestyle a little bit better. That's sort of where I found my people. So ended up going that route beyond high school instead of baseball.
So I was a major baseball fan and player growing up. My team was the Red Sox. Are you Atlanta Braves?
I like the Braves and the Cubs. Yeah.
Okay. And then is the era are we talking like Chipper Jones, Rafael Furcal?
Yep. Andrew Jones, Glavine Smoltz. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Kevin Millwood, legendary line of pitchers.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I heard a crazy story that you try out for your college team and you missed the 3 mile test by 10 seconds. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. And it was just me. I thought it was going to be, I went into it thinking it was like the time trial for all the walk-ons who wanted to make the team. And turned out it was just me and the cross-country coach at Miami University on the track at 6 a.m. And yeah, I missed it by about 10 seconds. And that was that.
No wiggle room.
No, but at the same time, I kind of understand it because, if you're not running under 15 minutes for 3 miles, then, maybe you could be a part of the team, but you're not really going to be an impact anyway. So, and I still ran that year just with the club. We had a good club team, which was fun. But then ultimately I found cycling, and I wouldn't have it any other way because I'm sure I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I had run for the NCAA team. Yeah.
Okay. So from a running standpoint, that was more like a footnote moment. It wasn't pivotal in terms of having a crisis of faith or anything in terms of your
No, not at all. Yeah. If anything, it was maybe something that led me down the path of cycling, which I think ended up developing me as an athlete to the point where I can do what I can do in trail running now.
Where does your competitiveness and drive come from?
That's a good question. I think I'm very competitive with myself, or I'm competitive in general. I'm a competitive person, but I'm not motivated by beating other people. The script of self-talk that I go through before every race, going back to the beginning of this year, or really the end of last year, it has included in it compete with yourself to achieve the best day possible, because that gets me fired up a lot more than competing against someone else. And I think it lends itself really well to long trail races because ultimately you're out there doing your own thing. And if you're not competitive with yourself, then you're going to kind of get lost, I think, and disengage. And there just aren't that many moments or at least I haven't had many moments in a 100K or 100 mile yet, or even 50 mile, where it's direct confrontation,
Huh. Okay. I want to come back to the self-talk piece in a bit. If we return to cycling, what draws you there? What's special about cycling?
There are a few things that are really special about cycling to me. One is the sense of place that you get through cycling. I think it's just the best way to explore places. I don't know how many hours I've spent just poring over maps, trying to make a route on roads and in all places of the world. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to travel a little bit with my bike, and the reason I found cycling in the first place was I was trying to get better at understanding, listening to and reading French. And I was already into running, and cycling is pretty big in French sporting culture. So it sort of just, came up, of course, the Tour. And I said, well, that's kind of like running. Maybe I can just watch a bike race in French and practice that way. And yeah, I immediately fell in love with it. Like, there are so many different languages, international sport, and but really just the sense of place, the fact that you can go all day on your bike. Now, of course, I know you can run all day as well, but I think trail running has a similar spirit to cycling, actually. And yeah, those are the things that really draw me to cycling. I like just being outside by myself or with a couple of friends and all day going.
Wait, so are you doing like Duolingo on the bike? Are you learning the French language as you're cycling?
No, not at all. I just like follow the French cycling media.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I follow sport.
But you became fluent. Like, you went and worked in France for a cycling company.
Yeah, I can. I mean, I don't speak it as well as I used to be able to, just because I don't have occasion to use it every day now. But I'll still listen to the radio in French most mornings, and yeah, like I said, that's how I follow the sport of cycling, is through the French media. Yeah, and it was amazing to have some experiences over in France and discover cycling that way.
Do you think, maybe this is a loaded question, is it easier and or more interesting to be a fan of cycling or a fan of trail running?
Well, it's actually getting harder to be a fan of cycling in the US right now, because it's difficult to, unless you have like multiple paying subscriptions, it's hard to watch all of the races. But I guess like with a VPN, you can watch other countries' public broadcasting of cycling. It would just be in another language. And trail running it seems like it's getting easier. Like, I can watch all the big races on YouTube, but in terms of content that's out there, like podcasts, articles, dedicated news outlets, definitely cycling is still bigger. Plus, you've got the Tour, which is one of the most watched sporting events in the world. But it is cool to see trail running growing and having like good access for fans.
How good did you get at cycling relative to how good you are in our sport?
Not even close. I like to think about like, what is the ideal athlete for road cycling, and to me, it's like a miler. If you take a track analogy, you need to be like a super talented miler who trains, who enjoys, and can absorb ultra endurance training, because these are 4 to 7 hour races in cycling, but they're won and lost in like usually 3 to 8 minute bursts, besides like mountain stages. But of course, if you're only good at steady mountain efforts, climbing a mountain pass for 30 minutes to an hour, then you're not going to be of much use to like a professional team. And even then, that's like a threshold effort. So then you're like a half marathon or a marathoner. And so you need that like explosive power for cycling. And it's not something that I think ever suited my strengths. Plus, I just didn't figure out nutrition on the bike either. In an amateur, like a high level amateur race in the US, you've got either crits, which are 90 minutes, and you get basically sprinters win them, or you have road races. But if you're just on your own or with a couple of like very amateur teammates, then it's very hard to logistically get enough nutrition in, because you probably don't have somebody at the feed zones. And so then what do? Maybe like your pockets are bursting with gels, but you only have a couple bottles of water. And so, yeah, I never figured out the nutrition, but also I think I'm just suited to a much longer effort. I mean, I was strong on the bike, but I also tactically and in terms of bike handling, I wasn't good enough to really get to a top level in cycling.
Okay. And I might have misunderstood this from previous interviews you've done, but I got the sense that one of the reasons why the mental side of the sport became so important because you had identified that in cycling as sort of the performance gap. It was like the self-talk piece.
I think I've identified that as the performance gap in like all my entire history of endurance sport up to up to, let's say, last year, maybe, I felt like I chronically underperformed relative to my fitness. And I do think it was largely due to the lack of mental preparation or just lack of maturity as like a high performing athlete. And I think I only figured it out, well, one, with experience, but also just because of the nature of something like a 100-mile race or 100K, 50-mile, because the race starts and it's not like you have to be on mentally in a certain sense, but it's not an effort where you're immediately in it. And like, we go out and we're basically jogging. I know the races are like going out hard, but is it really hard? It's, we're running at very sustainable efforts for the athlete that we are. We're like in zone 2, maybe we dip a little bit above that, but we're going out very controlled. And so it feels like I'm just going on a run. And that's like one of the, for example, in Havalina, I had themes for each lap. But the beginning theme and the later themes may have been more competition oriented, but the early themes were really about just relaxing, sort of making it feel like I was just out on a group run with people. And that is how it feels to me. And then seeing how that suits my style as an athlete, I feel like I've been able to set up a really good mental strategy for each of these races and then extend it to the competitive part of the race.
Are there any examples from earlier in your career, maybe even in cycling, where you do vividly remember your mind being the reason why you came up short and what that might have looked like internally?
I can't think of a specific example, or maybe I have a couple bike races in mind.
Yeah.
Just like getting to the end of the race, and I didn't have a plan going in for the first half of the race. So then maybe when I get to like the two I'm thinking of, I got to the final climb, and I probably still had plenty left in me, but I hadn't been engaged for the first half of the race. And so I was having to try to like reset and start my mindset in the race, which just didn't work because I was already in discomfort and thinking about things that were going wrong. Versus now, like, I can anticipate a lot better things that will go right and things that will go wrong.
I've made a note to come back to the mental piece, especially around Havalina, in a minute. Until recently, I know you're in Bellingham now, and we'll talk about that too. Until recently, in my opinion, you've been training and basing yourself out of one of the most interesting, unique places any pro in our sports ever lived, Blairstown, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Which I kind of know a little bit because I do know the Delaware Water Gap. I know that area, but for anyone that doesn't know, can you talk about just like how you've made it work there, any variety on the table in terms of training environments, etc.?
Blairstown was actually a great place to train. I mean, the variety was the biggest thing, and that's part of why I'm in Bellingham too. I think the variety is like top notch here, and that's the thing that I value most in training is variety, in terms of the place and also in terms of the actual activities. But Blairstown is in northwest New Jersey. It's about 90 minutes outside of New York City, depending on traffic. When I first moved to New Jersey, I didn't really know anything about it. I figured it was just like the other part of New York City, which some of it is, but that whole northwest corner of New Jersey is pretty nice. It's a good rural area, Blairstown. You have the boarding school that I worked at for 4 years, and then there's like residential areas, but the houses are very spread out, and the town itself is just one tiny little main street. It's on a river, so we've got like a river trail that goes for about 27 miles. I did a lot of training on that like smooth dirt path, the river trail, but then And you have country roads that I would do a lot of riding on. They're like short, punchy climbs all over. And then the best place to train as a trail runner is the Delaware Water Gap, like you said.
Yeah.
And the Appalachian Trail runs along the Kittatinny Ridge, which stretches like the whole northwest quarter of New Jersey from the New York border to the Delaware Water Gap, which is and where the AT crosses the Delaware River into Pennsylvania. And the Kittatinny Ridge is very rocky. There's not a ton of climbing on the AT itself in New Jersey, but you have trails that go up to the ridge on either side of it. And so it's a pretty good playground there. It's very technical, and yeah, you can actually rack up some pretty good vert in New Jersey. I was doing some some 30 to 80K runs that ended up being well over 2,000 meters a gain.
Wow. And then how do you end up landing a teaching gig at Blair Academy? Like, was that premeditated? Was that always sort of like a career ambition? How does it all work?
No, I wanted to teach for a long time. And so I went to graduate school here in Bellingham at Western Washington. It was just a master's program, not PhD. And studying math, not education. But the path for most of the students in that program is, because we did teach undergraduate classes at Western Washington University as well. So the path for most students is either teach at a university as an instructor but not a professor, or teach at a community college. There are a lot of community colleges in Washington. It's a pretty it's a pretty good setup for students. But it was during COVID when I graduated, and there was just nobody hiring. And I was interested in high school because I thought like doing this stuff outside of the classroom would be a lot of fun, coaching activities, stuff like that. But I didn't have an education degree, so independent schools was the way to go. And I got hired pretty late in the summer. It was a boarding school, so I thought that was like an interesting opportunity, and New Jersey was not a place that I was targeting. I didn't know boarding schools existed outside of books and movies, but it sounded like a fun adventure for a little while, so I went for it.
It seems incredible. Like, you get to live on campus. It seems like a lot of your necessities are taken care of. I mean, it does seem all consuming at the same time, but
yeah,
there's like a romantic sense to it, it seems.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I'm super glad I did it. I gained a ton of experience. Ultimately, I decided I wanted some more balance in my life, because I think being a boarding school teacher forever is not for everyone. Maybe being a boarding school teacher, period, is not for everyone, because it's pretty much 24/7, and you're kind of isolated from like any other communities. But I found like a really supportive group of people there at Blair Academy, and it was a good spot for me for 4 years.
So you're not the move out west wasn't totally due just to your ultra running success.
No, that was maybe like the impetus for doing it now versus sticking it out for a few more years. But I had kind of I had kind of discovered that I wanted to have a more balanced life and maybe look for a day school teaching eventually, like in the next 2 to 3 years. But once I decided that I was running pretty well and I was having a lot of fun going to the big races, and that just wasn't going to be possible at all with teaching at a boarding school. And also like now is kind of the time to do it for me. So I pulled the trigger on that. But it was really a different experience. I mean, I lived in a dorm with 10th grade students. So I had 27 10th grade boys living in my building. I have like an apartment with a kitchen and everything, but you go in through the common room and upstairs, like through the hallways of the dorm every time you're in and out. We had class Monday through Saturday. Sunday, usually there were activities, and then coaching, teaching, the whole deal.
I know for me, probably for the audience as well, when I hear you talk about life there, how scheduled it was, how relatively regimented it was. One of the takeaways for me as someone in the sport is like, okay, like no excuses in terms of getting the work done. If you can get the work done at a high level in our sport under those conditions, what am I complaining about? What is someone in the audience complaining about? Like you can get it. It's pretty cool that you were able to, and maybe it was an unorthodox approach to getting ready for a race like Black Canyon. I've heard you use the term abstract. That was how your training worked, but no excuses, right? You got it done.
Yeah. And I think it helps that like I'm obsessed with endurance sports. Like that's what I do in my life. And so even though I had all of this going on around school, like the way I saw it is whatever free time I had was going towards trail running now. And I did school duties. I trained and I managed to get about 6 hours of sleep a night. And that was it. And I always want to live just a life of endurance sport. So it wasn't like a chore for me. It wasn't trying to fit it in. And like I said, I do want more balance in my life now. So, but also I'm using the more time to train more within reason. Like, yeah.
Just a few more questions I have on background before we get into these last few races you've registered in the sport. And this could apply to cycling or ultra running. Have you had any, I don't want to say idols, but are there athletes either in cycling or in trail that you have looked up to or drawn inspiration from, like they've contributed to how you approach the sport?
I mean, too many to name, but I would say since I found cycling through the French cycling media, just the whole like French cycling ethos of like riders who like to go in breakaways and just see what happens. Riding artistically, sort of like old school training. I mean, I think I still keep that spirit, even though I'm training like a lot more professionally and with more purpose now. But I still feel like I'm going out and just like, creating my run or my ride. And so the first tour I watched was like Thomas Vauclair rode really well, and he would like put his tongue out while he's off the front in the breakaway. Loved like Thibaut Pinot and Romain Bardet, who just retired, but yeah.
Because I don't know cycling well, I might have missed something here, but what does it mean when you say ride artistically or compete artistically?
So have you heard of like, the whole Team Sky thing in the 2010s?
No.
Okay.
No. Tell us.
British cycling like put together a professional Team Sky, and that's ultimately who Bradley Wiggins and Chris Froome and Geraint Thomas won the tour for, and Egan Bernal. And when they came on scene, they were known for like a very scientific approach and marginal gains. And that's the antithesis of French professional cycling, at least up until I think it's, the teams are definitely modernizing now. Okay. With the couple of French World Tour teams there are, but just like their nutrition. So like they'd have these like fruit bars, and just the way they trained was a lot more old school, I guess I'd say.
That sounds like an interesting contradiction to reflect on. Like as you're getting into our sport at a much deeper level, you've rapidly ascended. You're at the very top of the sport, it seems, in a lot of ways. Are you grappling with that sort of like artistic approach versus scientific approach, and what needs to happen possibly to sort of either keep your position or grow in the sport?
I'm not worried about it, if that's what you mean.
Yeah. Are you worried?
No, I'm not, because I think it's still this sport, like, yes, it's getting more scientific, more structured and everything. But I think it's always going to remain a lot more on the artistic side of things. I mean, people are running 100 miles in the mountains, even more now. And I actually really like the 100-mile races, like the big 100-mile races, because to me it's the perfect medium between like you need to just be able to put up with more stuff than everybody else and like hack your way through the day, but you also need to be a high performance runner. And like the stuff that's a lot longer than the 100-mile races so far right now is very far to the side of just keep going, one foot in front of the other. Like if you can manage to not sleep and move, then you can maybe do pretty well. And then below 100-mile, like in 50Ks, you better be like really powerful.
Okay.
And 100-mile is sort of that sweet spot, I think. So I'm really excited to do some more of those races.
So you're optimistic that at the 100-mile distance, there's always going to be some element of artistry to it, and it won't totally be owned by science.
Yeah, for sure.
That's cool.
And cool. Also, I think that like trail running does a really good job of just conveying athletes' styles and stories. And as long as that's like the center of how people get into the sport and experience the sport, then I think that that ethos will live on.
Do you have a style that you're trying to communicate? Like if someone was watching you at Havalina, is there some sort of like ambiance or ethos that you want to be giving off?
I don't know if I could put it into words. I don't know. Maybe if you watch someone race, then maybe you understand the style. But I'm not intentionally trying to do anything. I'm just trying to be me. I'm trying to run the race as best I can. But
we got to talk about how you entered the sport. I looked at your ultra sign up and I saw 8 hours at the farm in Brookfield, Connecticut, and squatchy leftovers in West Orange, New Jersey. And then from there, you just catapult to Leadville. Like, how do you reconcile that?
So my first race was actually the Leadville Silver Rush 50 mile in 2023. So that was in the winter. I think it was January or February of 2023 is when I sort of like found trail running and decided, oh, that looks cool. I was looking for inspiration to like get competitive again because my last bike race was in 2021, and I started teaching full time in the fall of 2021, and just didn't really have time to train while I was getting into that. But I could always like get outside and for 30 minutes like throw a pair of running shoes on. So that was the first running I had done since my freshman year of college, so sophomore year of college, so 2014 or 15. So 2021, I took up running again. And then 2023, that January or February, I found trail running through, I don't know, like there was something about UTMB that I stumbled across. And so I decided that looks cool. I got to do that. Like
French are always through line here for you.
Yeah. Like I might be uniquely suited to that was sort of something I was thinking. So I went online, tried to find a 100-mile race to sign up for that summer. Because you also have summer break as a teacher. Even though the boarding school life is like pretty busy, the summer is great. But I realized you can't just sign up for a 100-mile race. At Leadville, you actually can if you enter the lottery, but the lottery had passed. But there was a 50-mile registration that was still open. So I just one night signed up for it without knowing what I was getting into. And I had done a half marathon before, but nothing else. So yeah, I went there and didn't really know what to expect. Figured I had trained after school. I got out. I did like 3 big weeks. Besides that, it was like 5 to 10K runs usually in the mornings. And I decided I just got to run at a comfortable pace and see if I can finish this thing. And then after about 15 minutes, I was alone in the lead and ended up going back and forth with another guy for the rest. He caught me at about halfway, and then we went back and forth for the rest of the race. And I finished like 50 seconds behind him in second. And so from then on, I was like, okay, this is really cool. I enjoy it. I might be able to be good at it. So that fall, I did the squatchy leftovers 50K and the 8 hours at the farm. Just because, so we had class on Saturdays and all the other races are on Saturdays. Those were the 2 that were on Sundays and within driving distance. They're just good local trail races. It was fun. But and I was talking about the Squatchy Leftovers 50K just yesterday with my buddy Mike, who I used to run with in New Jersey, and he came and did it with me as well. And we were just like thinking about the fact that we went to this Squatchy Leftovers 50K at South Mountain in New Jersey, and we had like a cooler. It's loops. I think we did 10 laps of a 5K circuit on a trail at South Mountain, and we just put a cooler next to a tree, like by the start finish, which was just a chalk line, you know, in the dirt. And I had like potato chips and Gatorade and Coke or something. And we just ran loops of it. And I don't know, I was like lapping people left and right, but there were, and Mike as well, he did well. And, but there were so many people out there, and it was just like going for a run in the woods in New Jersey, and then 8 hours at the farm as well. That was laps. So,
it makes Havalina a piece of cake.
Yeah, exactly. 10 laps versus 5 laps. But since I finished second at Leadville Silver Rush 50 mile, I got into Leadville for the next year.
At this point, because your race at Leadville coincides with David Roche's first run there, breaks the course record, etc. Huge kind of watershed moment in the sport. Were you aware of David? Were you aware of like what he was bringing to the table? Talk about that.
Yeah, because I went to stay in Colorado for the summer during my summer break from teaching. And I rode my bike I was staying in Buena Vista. I rode my bike up to Leadville to see the 50-mile race that summer. And I saw David running there and saw that he crushed it. And I knew there was the entry to the 100 if you do well at that race. And I had deferred mine to the year after. But yeah, I figured he would be in the 100. I had started to get into the sport at that time too, so I was like aware that David had like a background in racing really at a competitive level. And yeah, I wasn't thinking too much about like competitors though, because also you can't see the start list of Leadville right beforehand, so you don't know who's going to show up. And also I was like so new in the sport that I wouldn't have had much context for the start list anyway. But actually that summer, it was like the second day that I was in Colorado, I went to run near Mount Elbert, and I was on the South Elbert Trail and ran into Addie Bracey.
Okay.
I didn't know anyone in Colorado, obviously. I had just gone there to prep for Leadville. But when I was coming up on the trail, I was like, oh, that looks like a really good athlete. And she stopped and struck up a conversation with me and was just like super encouraging and really friendly. And she invited me to run Hope Pass with her. So we ran Hope Pass together, and she was giving me all the tips on Leadville because she's very experienced with the race. And actually, I remember when we ran Hope Pass, she told me, she was like, Will, I think you can win Leadville. And that was like a huge moment for me, just like someone believing in me and giving me encouragement. And so I did go into the race like trying to be competitive, but I also took it really conservatively. I mean, David did not, and I didn't see him the rest of the race besides when we passed each other, like him coming back from Winfield and me going down to Winfield. The strongest part of my race at Leadville was the Hope Pass section. So I had moved up to third by that time, and I don't know how far behind Adrian McDonald, who was in second, but he hadn't turned around yet. And then I saw David at some point along on the trail. So there's like you descend the backside of Hope Pass, and then you at the Willis Gulch split, you go onto another trail before you get to the dirt road, which goes to Winfield. So, and we crossed paths while we were still on the trail, not even on the dirt road yet. And so I knew he was way ahead. But yeah, that was how I experienced David's amazing run at Leadville. And I actually, I told him this as well. Just after the race at Havalina, I said like that seeing his run at Leadville and me being in the race sort of showed me what might be possible eventually, even though I was hours back and I had no right to like think that I would be at that level soon or or at least, racing him competitively versus just being in the same race. Yeah, that did give me a lot of motivation. So those were some of the things that like really encouraged me, and then set me on like the path to try and compete in 2025.
I mean, a couple things I'll say on that. The first, it's interesting. I feel like even at the top of the sport among colleagues, it kind of depends on the personality, but you'll see people of the same ability level. If one of the two people puts up an amazing performance, the other person might put that performance on a pedestal and treat it as sort of this like untouchable thing. And I've heard you talk about this, but like your self-talk is incredible. And it seems like your response to these great performances in the sport isn't necessarily, putting it on a pedestal, but saying, I can do that too, which is just amazing to me. I mean, is that self-belief? Is that earned? Does it come naturally to you? Like, how have you built that?
I think maybe it does start with a little bit of unreasonable self-belief, but you earn it then little by little, and it can only be real once you've earned enough of the self-belief to like actually go into the race with a plan to make it happen. Yeah, I lost my train of thought. I don't know what else I was going to say.
Well, it's just, I mean, again, I think even just that first part, the willingness to dive into it and just think, even if it is irrational initially, that you can do that to me seems like the most important step. So the fact that you have that you instinctually can get to that place seems like a competitive advantage to me.
Yeah, this is going to sound, I feel like I've told multiple people this, and maybe you will disagree, but I think one of the biggest things about like my belief in my ability to like do some of these, or like match some of these performances, or at least rise to that level in ultras, is if we look at Havalina, right? Like 12:10, it's one of the faster 100 mile trail races, but the average pace is like 7:15 or something, right? Which, okay, yeah, that's strong for 100 miles, but 7:15 per mile, that's an easy run for athletes who are training competitively. And so to me, like, fitness is not necessarily the limiting factor. I can run 7:15 pace. The problem is to try to keep doing it all day. And one of the biggest reflections I've had this year on the sport and like what I can do and what I need to improve upon, what I maybe could improve upon, is that like trail ultra running, I think, is such a skill sport. It's almost to the degree that like baseball or basketball is a skill sport.
Really?
I think of it that way. There's a huge fitness component to it, but I think it's a lot smaller than maybe some people believe it is. Or, like I said, maybe you disagree with this. But if you have a baseline level of fitness, like if you're fast enough, let's say, or strong enough, then you've got your ticket to the race. And then what happens in the race, like the outcomes, I think tend to be dictated by just a large skill set that includes mindset, nutrition, hydration, cooling, aid station strategies, like pacing. Yeah, technical running ability, just your durability over the course of the day, which maybe some people would argue is training. It can definitely be affected by training, but I know I'm not the fittest runner in a lot of contexts at these races. Like there are people on the start line who would smoke me in a marathon or a half marathon, let's say, but I'm not worried about that because I feel like I'm at least in the slice of runners who are fit enough to compete. And then it's the skill set beyond that can determine the results. And especially now that I've gotten a lot fitter and I'm training so much better, and I've made this huge jump in like physical ability over the course of the last 8-9 months or so. Of course, as an athlete competing at the front, you're going to do everything you can to maximize your fitness, because if you're not, you're leaving something on the table, and it can only help you. But I think it's more of a skill sport than people sometimes believe. And also, because it's a skill sport, anecdotally, to me, it seems like the people who are good at 100-mile, 100K or longer races tend to always be able to do well at them. And I think it's that, like, if you have that really strong skill set, then your performance is almost a little bit resistant to like natural fluctuations in fitness over the course of the season, or even from season to season.
A couple of things. Do you think, so if you were to go back in your athletic history, would you actually say that having played baseball, maybe you played soccer, other coordination, hand-eye coordination type sports, are you saying that those contribute to your success right now?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting, because I think, and again, I've maybe done this in a misguided way. I think I have, in a lot of ways, always exalted the people that have had these like long-standing histories just as a runner, as a pure runner.
I mean, it's a different sport. It really is a different sport.
Yeah.
Like I said, if I line up for a half marathon or a marathon, like, okay, maybe I can do well, like, but I'm not going to be elite, because it's a different sport versus like this sport. I feel like I have the skill set for it, along with some fitness, of course.
I'm sure that as you go on the interview circuit, one of the big themes is going to be how much you've closed the performance gap, even between Black Canyon and Havalina for yourself. And we can talk about that. But I'm actually maybe more impressed at the gap that you closed between what you did at Leadville and Black Canyon. And I'm not even sure you were coached yet then.
No.
So like, what do you attribute that to? Because that was, to go from fifth at Leadville in a respectable time to 2 minutes under Hayden Hawks' old course record, nearly beating Seth Ruling, probably the most competitive ultra on American soil this past year. An amazing jump. Like, what do you attribute that to?
Yeah, a few things. Well, one, I'm just so new in the sport that like I think I'm still on like a fast upward trajectory, and like, I'm very inexperienced still. I have a long way to go, I think. And of course, I don't think I'll keep dropping like 5 hours off 100-mile time or something, but yeah, so that was maybe the first thing, is I was just at the beginning of like learning how to do trail running, and actually putting in like time training for an ultra specifically. But then another thing, I think, like a really big effort, an acute, really big effort, like doing Leadville when I had such a weak background going into it, like it kind of changed my body. I don't know if there's anything scientific behind that, but I felt like that effort, like I came out of it differently. I was changed by it in the sense that fall, I recovered decently quickly, I would say. Like maybe, I'm recovering faster from ultras now, but I wasn't like on the couch for weeks after Leadville. And then soon after it, I was just able to like sustain 100-mile weeks pretty much no problem. Even like doing full-time teaching and not having a ton of time to recover. And I was faster after Leadville. Like I did some cross-country races and ran like times that are just like completely different than what I did in high school and my first year of college. So I think that I just, and some of this I think was also the endurance that I built up as a cyclist, but then after Leadville, I was able to apply it to running.
Okay.
So I think those are some of the things that explain it, but then also like the mindset shift to, I think I can compete at the big races now that I've seen what it takes and what it looks like on the course. And yeah.
Again, thinking for myself and also thinking for the audience, we talked earlier about how, like, in a very inspirational way, you made room for the sport working at a boarding school. And then again, to me, this is superhuman and amazing that despite being sort of like the surprise of the day at Black Canyon, that was not a surprise to you. That was an expectation. And you transformed mentally in like 5 or 6 months. That's incredible. Like, I don't have a question here. I'm just like commending. I wish I had that self-belief in any facet of life. And it's just cool that it followed through.
It is really cool. But I think also a lot of it again goes back to like just sort of the inexperience I had. Like if I had known more about how unimpressive that Leadville run was, finishing 5th and running in the 17s or whatever, then I maybe wouldn't have felt like I could have the self-belief to say, yeah, I should be at the front of Black Canyon.
Yeah.
But I didn't, like I said, I've really gotten into the sport since. So like now I know, but at the time I was a little more uninformed, and I figured that it could translate easier than maybe it should have been able to.
I don't know where I'm going with that. Just the verification. You know what I mean? I think I'm going back to just like unwarranted confidence is one thing, but like, when do you know that it's time to believe in something?
Well, also I had seen what I could do in training after Leadville, and the training was progressing, specifically long runs. Like if I looked at what I was doing for long runs and how I felt as well, not just like what the numbers were from the long runs, or like what the paces, everything were, how I felt doing those paces, and after I finished the long runs, I could just extrapolate, and that continues today. Like I had going into, I know people were like really surprised by the times at Havalina this year, and I was surprised that people were surprised, because I had mentioned when I was talking with my coach, John, before the race, I mean, we had kind of mentioned in passing, like probably low 12s or at least mid 12s. And just like looking at training paces and extrapolating, knowing how I felt during the training runs and having context and everything, it was like, yeah, that makes sense. And so there was that element before Black Canyon that I had been doing long runs that I could point to as, okay, if I just do that and make sure I'm going into the race fresh and fuel well. And I had put a big emphasis on running strong at the end of the long runs. So I knew I could be strong in the second half, and like it made sense to me that I could do it at the race.
This just came to mind. I mean, you strike me in a lot of ways as a really clear thinker. And I know that must be helped by the fact that you're not on social media. So you probably don't get caught up a ton in social comparisons or expectations based on the narratives that exist there. You just get to operate in this relationship with yourself and your coach, and the extent to which maybe you have an inner circle of friends that you train with. But again, I'm just speculating that seems like it could help a lot.
Yeah. To be fair, I did make an Instagram account just because I felt like I should be easier to communicate with, but how will I use it? I don't know if I will use it. You're not going to catch me like browsing it. But people don't have my phone or email, and I don't have people's phone and email, so I'm reachable now. But I don't spend time on social media, but I do, like, I watch all the trail running races, so it's not like I don't have access to comparison. And I do like Strava as well. I've had Strava for a long time.
Yep.
I think it's super fun. It's useful in the sense that like the maps are really good and the route building, but it's also just fun to see where people run and ride. And I think you can learn about other athletes training through it. Plus, like, the community is already, there's a common interest there. So like, I don't have a problem necessarily being on Strava or browsing Strava because there's like purpose behind it. Whereas I'm not just going to like share general life stuff, or I don't have a reason to share general life stuff or look at other people's general life stuff if I don't know them in like a face-to-face context. But so yeah, I think I have access to that comparison, but I don't have any interest in making it.
Dude, huge props for making it this far without it. Like, was that a conscious thing? What's the backstory behind how you've gone this long without Instagram or these other social apps besides Strava?
Yeah, no, it wasn't really necessarily a conscious decision. I just never had it, and I never had need of it, because I figured if there's anybody I needed to like communicate with, I either see them face to face on a daily basis, or I have their phone number or email. And yeah, I'm not interested in Instagram like in and of itself. So if it's not like useful for me, then I just never got into it. I don't know why. But I'm not unconditionally opposed to social media. Like I told you, Strava's fun. But
so you get the golden ticket at Black Canyon, and Western States is this dream race. It seems like a lot of things are going right in training. You're making a ton of progress. Fast forward us to this moment where you have the AFib and the ankle injury. Like, maybe starting with the AFib, just walk us through that and the impact, if any, that it had on your psyche.
Yeah, it did, like, for a little bit, for sure. I mean, going into Western, so I went out to the Truckee area the beginning of June after I had finished school. And the second day that I was there, I went out for a bike ride because I had been doing these bike to run workouts on my Sundays that I had off pretty much from school stuff. And so like the rest of the week's volume was, I pretty much never had like more than 2 hours, let's say, with a few exceptions on a couple of weekends where I like move things around. I mean, training for Western States, I sort of, I still did my job well, but I made I adjusted things more than I otherwise would have to commit a lot of time to training. And I was like way stronger than I've ever been before. But so then the second day in the Truckee area, actually I drove to Forest Hill because I had a loop drawn out like across the American River, like from the forest up the Forest Hill Divide, and then across the American River and down to Auburn and back up. And then I was going to run an out and back on the Cal Street section of trail after that. But I get across the American River, like down into the canyon and back up out. And I stopped at a gas station to refuel. And it was pretty hot out, and I wasn't riding that hard either. But I got a slushie because I thought it would cool me off. And
internal cooling, all the rage.
Yeah, exactly. But I drank it really fast and got this feeling that, like, you know how when you eat pasta really fast, you gotta get the wind knocked out of you?
Yeah.
That's the feeling I got when I drank this slushie quickly. And I was like, ooh, that was weird. But just finished the slushie, keep going on my ride. And as I was going up the first hill out of the gas station, I realized my heart rate was like really high and I was not riding hard and I wasn't tired. Then there's like a downhill to Auburn, and then you descend to No Hands Bridge. And by this point, I'm just starting to feel like really bad. I'm uncomfortable in my upper body. My heart rate's still high. I feel hot. And then going up Old Forest Hill Road from No Hands Bridge to the main Forest Hill Road, this is not that big a climb. It's like kind of steep, but it probably, I don't know how long it is. It's less than 15 minutes for sure. And I'm just crawling at a snail's pace, but my heart rate is like in the 180s and I feel terrible. I start to get like tunnel vision, and then my vision goes blurry, and I have to stop like 2 times on this 10-minute climb. Like pour water on myself, drink all the liquid I have left. And so now I've got nothing, and I've got to get back to Forest Hill. And on the main Forest Hill Road, I finally got up there. I just felt worse and worse, had to stop multiple times, super dizzy, felt like I was going to faint. Ultimately, I had to hitchhike back to Forest Hill. Someone was able to drive me on my bike back to Forest Hill, and I decided I wasn't going to run, of course, off of that because I was feeling so bad. My heart rate was still high when I would do when I would pedal at all. And so I started to drive out of Forest Hill, and my vision went out again and felt like I was going to faint. So I just pulled over into the first place I saw, and it was the parking lot of the fire station in Forest Hill. It was probably like 5 minutes outside of the Forest Hill aid station, of course.
Yeah.
And so got out of the car and like I was going to faint. So I had to lay down on the asphalt, and I just like managed to crawl over to the fire station and knock on the door. And they like hooked me up to an EKG, and
You're crawling to the door?
yeah.
Oh my
And
gosh.
they hooked me up to the EKG, run it once, they're like, run it again. And they're like, okay, you're going to get in the ambulance. You're going to the hospital. You're having a heart attack. And I was like, what? That's weird. After I like vomited, I was feeling better, but the EKG looked at normal. And so they kept asking me in the ambulance, like, are you having chest pain? I said, no, I'm not having any chest pain. I feel fine. Get to the hospital, and yeah, they determined I was not having a heart attack. They can tell from the EKG, but also from blood tests. And so they like ran all kinds of tests, all kinds of imaging. What was happening was I was in AFib, which is an irregular heartbeat. I mean, I don't know how much you know about it or people know about it, but it's actually pretty common. It's less common in younger people, but it apparently, being an endurance athlete can make you more predisposed to it. And one of the triggers can be like cold drink. So potentially this slushy is what triggered it. Of course, that's not the only thing. It's like a variety of factors. It can be indicative of like underlying issues, but I've been since evaluated for those, and my heart is healthy. Besides maybe that I'm predisposed to AFib, but yeah. So then they shock your heart. There's a procedure where they shock your heart and it puts it back in normal rhythm. When I was in it, I could just like put my hand to my heart, and your heart doesn't beat like in time at regular intervals. It just beats sort of like randomly. That's what you feel. But then once I got the cardioversion and was back in normal rhythm, I felt great. You can have like some palpitations for a few weeks after that, which I did. So I saw some cardiologists and was cleared to race, and then I broke my ankle very soon after that. So,
I mean, on the AFib side of things, it does seem reassuring that you have gotten all these medical professionals to say, look, you're good.
Yeah.
But and also it seems like, case closed because you performed at an extremely high level at Havalina. How long did it take you to restore confidence or maintain it, I guess? Did it ever go away? Did this incident create any doubt in your physical abilities?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first when I didn't know anything about AFib until it happened. And so like when it immediately happened, I was, my mind went to like, oh, am I going to be able to keep doing endurance sports like competitively? But then once I was reassured about that, then there is still a period where like you've been reassured by professionals that you're fine. But when it took me a little time to like have confidence in my body when pushing myself. And so, yeah, that was probably like a few weeks of me being a little bit careful and not fully trusting myself. But as I got back into training, it came back. It was fine.
If the ankle injury hadn't happened, do you think from a mindset standpoint, you would have been fully recovered by race day? Or do you think you would have been racing Western States with some doubt in your mind?
Yeah, it would have been hard. I would have, I think, had some doubt. Yeah, and I've talked about that with people since, that like maybe hurting my ankle was actually like a good thing, because I'm not sure I would have, like, the fitness was still there, and health wise, I think it would have been completely fine. But yeah, I probably wouldn't have been in it with the confidence that I should have had to be able to like compete at the front of the Western States, which was my goal and was my plan. Yeah, I don't know. We'll never know. Like maybe once I had been in there and like competing and just not thinking about anything else, it would have come back. But
I mean, two things. Obviously, like baseline, glad you're healthy and just on a human level, like safe. And then secondarily, once that's all accounted for, just glad that you're back in the sport, competing at a high level. You mentioned earlier before we got into this story that like in that period between Black Canyon and these medical incidents, you were like doubling down on the sport and really recommitting on a major level. When you add someone like John Fitzgerald to the equation, what are some of the concrete ways you level up as an athlete?
Yeah, I mean, it transformed my training for sure. Like there were times when I was doing a lot and doing certain things well before that, but and I think I had like a good sort of broad strokes of what I was doing, but there was just now that I had John working with me, there was just like thought from a professional put into everything. Some like concrete things that changed were my volume, like the density of my training volume ended up getting much higher. So I would say like the one thing that stands out about my training is that the big days are big. And then like when I am doing
When you say big, what do you mean?
Like a long run, for example, or these bike to run workouts that I've done, or just like big rides. I mean, my long runs have been up to 50 miles and just in training, and I can recover from them well. I've added strength training and like focus strength training. So I think one of the things John talks about a lot is like strengthening your hips as well. So I've done a lot of that, or like the right amount of it, let's say. Not constantly in the weight room. But yeah, and then the focused workouts, you could call them, are a lot more geared towards like ultras and some specific thing that I'm trying to, like specific quality that I need for an ultra, versus maybe before that I was just doing the workouts that I did besides just the easy volume were like maybe geared towards getting me faster in some general sense, but really not targeted in any way. And so those are two big things. But I think another big thing has just been like having a coach that's a really good fit for me to like be in constant contact with and like bounce ideas off of in terms of training. And I just have like a ton of trust in him. I think we have similar philosophies when it comes to endurance sport, but he has like professional training in physiology and coaching, whereas I have none of that, and I'm not even really interested in it, to be honest. So knowing that that's taken care of when he comes with a plan any given week, and then we'll talk and like adjust the plan based on more like feelings and things like that. That's been huge.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack here. I think the headline piece here that I think people would want to learn more about are these, because they kind of sound exotic, are the bike to long run sessions. Can you explain those and sort of the value prop there, like what you're getting out of them?
Yeah, this was an idea that came out of me not having a ton of time, like in blocks while I was teaching at boarding school, and especially since that spring, I was coaching baseball, and that was extremely time consuming. So like even when I normally would have had a little more time after school stuff, I was spending so much time on baseball. But Sundays, I felt like I could protect Sundays every week. And so in order to get the total volume, we decided, well, like we're going to have to get a lot of it in on Sunday. And I'm a cyclist. I love riding my bike. I can recover from a solid bike ride maybe more naturally than like just a runner who uses the bike every once in a while. And so the idea was we could get like an 8 to 10 hour day in by going and it was also partly modeled after like the Western States course, because riding a bike in some sense, like when you're pushing on the pedals, it's sort of similar to uphill running. And so if you do like a long ride first, where you're like riding pretty solid the whole time, you're like in the high country and you're in the canyons and you're climbing, and then off the bike, quick 5-minute change into running clothes. I would do some climbing there as well. And then finish the long run following the long bike ride with like smooth, steady running, even sometimes on road, flatter stuff. And that's, you're past Forest Hill, and you got to have running legs after you've pushed for a long time. And the other huge component of it was practicing fueling for that duration. Like, I think that was a huge advantage for me, because there probably aren't that many runners, unless they're racing a lot, who practice fueling for all day efforts a lot. Because you can, maybe your longest long run is 4 or 5 hours, but then you get to the race and you're going to run for 14 hours. Like, that's a huge difference. It's almost a completely different thing. Versus I could practice my race fueling strategy for the whole day, and maybe the demands are a little bit different on the bike. It's not specific, but at least you're taking in the fuel while giving some effort, and then fueling on the run as well. And you can end up practicing your fueling for 10 hours, which was really valuable. And then I would recover from those pretty well, because I had done a 10-hour day, but like maybe 5 or 6 of it was on the bike, and then it was just a normal long run. And like I said, I can recover from the bike just because I've ridden a lot in the past.
I think you're a great person to ask this next question to, because you have such a deep cycling background. With most runners at your level in the sport, with some exceptions, they'll start to peak out time on feet around 20 hours a week. Assuming you have the time here, do you get the sense that you could put in 20 hours time on feet running, and then maybe get up to a cyclist's level of training by adding another 10 to 20 hours on the bike, and there wouldn't be too much of a penalty, provided you can get all the calories in, carbs in, protein in? I mean,
there's still a cost to riding. I mean, even if it's not like on a muscular level or like your joints or something, like you're still spending energy. So like you say, maybe like taking in the that amount of fuel, and like eating enough even outside of your training would become difficult. I mean, I've done like some 30-hour weeks, or in excess of 30, but I don't think 40 is, maybe some people do it. I probably haven't done 20 hours of running in 1 week ever before. Like, I do keep cycling in there. It seems like there are a lot of runners using the bike too. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That by the way, that fueling value seems great to me. The fact that you can practice split across running and biking 10 hours of, race equivalent fueling. That seems amazing.
I mean, these workouts that I did in the spring, I only did one for Havalina. I only did one bike to run for Havalina, and it was shorter. Like I think I did a 4-hour ride with like big gear intervals at the end of it, and then I did a 1-hour run coming off of it. But then other than that, I was just focused on long runs. But I would do a long ride on Saturday, like 5 to 7 hour ride on Saturday, or I did one that was longer, and then long run on Sunday. So they were like split up, especially since I was coming back from this ankle injury. Like, I wasn't going to overdo it with the running, because it was getting a little bit sore after long runs. So it got better to the point where like I could do any long runs in like the 3 4 weeks leading up to Havalina. But I just kept the bike in there. But I think the fueling is definitely big, and like the bike to run workouts combined with the fact that I do very long runs, or I have done some very long runs recently, I think I practice ultra like a lot, which is a good thing.
Okay. Yeah. And again, just within sort of the CTS system, I've seen a couple different athletes do, again, I'll use the term exotic, but it's mostly just because I'm not familiar with it. So it might not even be exotic at all. But like you said, like the bike to run stuff, I've seen like John Ray a few years ago did like a 50-mile training run 2 weeks before states. I've seen him do, I can't remember what it was called, but like within a weekend, like on a Saturday and a Sunday, to practice for Havalina. I forget what the exact terminology was, but he did 6 2-hour runs broken up in a 48-hour time span. I think to mimic sort of like the lapped nature of Havalina, but also maybe to slightly get that volume in a safer way.
Yeah, like build up fatigue, but not.
And there's a term for it, and I'm blanking on it.
I had heard about that once before. I had heard of Chris Froome doing like 8-hour training cycles or something. So he just completely forgot about like day and night and like normal conventions for when you train, and like had just decided like I'm going to look at 8-hour blocks and just train then. And like if it was in the middle of the night, he'd be on the trainer or something.
I've got a quote for you. You said this shortly after Black Canyon this year. You said, "The better you get, the more tools you have to get even better." What do you mean by that? Like, what's an example?
One example is I'm recovering a lot better from long running efforts, and so therefore I can train. I mean, that's like the most simple version of it. It's like if you're getting better to the point where a 40-mile run in training doesn't wreck you, then you've just done a 40-mile run and you can train like 2 days after, and so you're just building more fitness.
Okay, let's talk about Havalina directly, because I know we've kind of been dancing around it throughout the conversation. For me in the media, one of the lessons of the past few years, not just at this one, but like at Canyons and Black Canyon, Western States, is you have to put yourself in the game early, and you really have to put the rest of the competition in quite an uncomfortable spot. But what I'm getting from you in this conversation is, okay, like the requisite pace, 7:15, not a big deal. In fact, feels kind of comfortable for quite a long period of time. The vision that I've been getting in my head is that for almost everyone in that race, from lap 1 onward, it was a struggle, but not for you. Like, was it for how long did this race feel easy?
3 laps. Yeah, at least 3 laps. Lap 4 was like starting to get hard, but I was strong. And then lap 5 was obviously very hard. I wasn't going to take a pacer originally, but Chris Myers convinced me to take the pacer that I had brought with me, and I'm glad he convinced me, because the last lap, I mean, I was still in a good spot. Like I was well fueled. I still had a lot of running left in my legs. Mentally, I was there, but I definitely was like, my pacer was dragging me along. I was looking at his feet and just stay on it. So yeah, I would say like it felt comfortable for 3 laps for sure.
If you look back on the entire race, what would you identify as the key competitive moments, like with you against your peers?
The first lap was important because people went really fast, of course, but they were doing it in a way that was like surgy, and I was trying to keep an eye on my heart rate. It was still a little higher than maybe I would have planned, but I was keeping it in check, and especially on the uphill section of the first lap, I was just like keeping the whole race. After the first lap, John said to me, he was like, just run steady, no surges. And so steady, no surges was like a mantra that was going through my head from that point on. And I did that on a first lap too, but like having that reminder was really important for the rest of the race, especially since that first lap is where like people are jockeying for position and stuff. But to me, like that was, it's 100 miles. I'm not going to get involved with that. Like as long as I'm in the game, then I'm good. So I just, tried to like smooth out my effort, and I just didn't go with any of the surges, I guess. And that was important, the way I ran the first lap, to be there, but do it like on my terms. And then
that must take a lot of confidence not to feel compelled to react to any of that.
Yeah, I mean, I was confident, but I wasn't like tempted by it. Yeah, it's 100 miles. So, and
But
then
things can get away from you. There have been many
Yeah.
examples at big races like this where things do get away from someone who is well-intentioned.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, part of like my mindset plan was like to think of 3 phases of the race, where the first phase is you've got to put yourself in the game, but like stay relaxed. And then once things have sort of like naturally sorted themselves out a little bit, things are like there's status quo, it's situated, then I would just pull back and refocus fully on myself and not think so much about other runners. And then the third phase was like, if you've done those 2 things well, then compete for the win. But I guess another like competitive moment in the race was on lap 3. I went out like a few seconds behind David, and then when we started like the uphill section of the loop, I did go around him, but it didn't feel like a move. Like I didn't put in a move. Like if you're asking about competitive moves that happened, it was more just like I felt like to keep my effort steady, I just needed to go a little faster. So, or I didn't go faster. I went at the same pace. I kept the same pace, but then that was where I put in the gap the first time to go in the lead, and then that ended up being when I went away. But
That's got to feel like a surreal moment to pass the person who was the story at Leadville and has been an amazing runner in the sport. That's got to feel like, I mean, obviously you kind of arrived at Black Canyon, but that's got to feel like an I belong type moment in the sport when you pass and then maintain the rest of the way.
Yeah, it was definitely like confirmation, because so much respect for what David's done.
Yeah.
He's super strong and had amazing results his past couple of years, in particular in 100-mile races. But it was just confirmation for me, because I was really confident coming in.
When I use the phrase "keep the signal," what does that mean in the context of Havalina?
Did you talk to John?
I can't divulge my sources.
Okay. Yeah. So I do like to set like a mindset goal for each race. Like I told you, I sort of like, that was how I was thinking about the race. So I split it up into 3 phases. But like at Black Canyon, my mindset goal was recognize decision time as soon as it comes and immediately make the decision to dig in. Versus then in long runs, like throughout the year, I've started to think of, there was one long run, like a 50-mile long run before in the spring leading up to Western States, where I just, you have a lot of time to think when you're out on the run. I don't listen to anything while I run. And I was like, man, if I just like send the signal from my brain to my legs to make the striding motion, like it'll do it. My legs are trained to do that. So if I just can get the signal from the brain to my legs, if I keep sending the signal, then I'll keep running strong. And when I get fatigued or I feel uncomfortable, there's like noise in the channel that signal travels through. And so if I just focus on clearing the channel and keep sending the signal, then I could run well. So my goal for Javelina was, I need to keep sending the signal for the whole race. And that was what I was focused on.
Do you have an elegant mantra for Black Canyon as well? Because keep the signal is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was the decision time. It was the thing about decision time. Okay. Immediately make the decision to dig in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel on lap 4 or 5 that you had to recommit to the moment, or from a mental standpoint, was the confidence there from start to finish?
Yeah, I felt focused the whole time, especially since like I knew that the race was right behind me. Like I wasn't getting splits out there at all. I think maybe it was after lap 3, like I heard it's about 2 minutes or something like that. But other than that, I didn't know anything besides like they're still there. And I didn't know Canyon was still there. I guess he ended up making like a really big push too, but he was in it the whole time, I guess, looking back at splits from the race. But I knew David was right there. So that was what kept me focused the whole time.
I want to hear your aid station strategy because I've seen this at other races. CTS brings out the pools and stuff. I could tell in the live stream that you had the pool system in play, but maybe communicate to the audience just how dialed efficient you guys were, like what was involved in that process.
Yeah, they were amazing. I had my one friend Payson who paced me the last lap as crew, and then John and the other CTS coaches. So there were like 5 CTS coaches plus Payson who each had one job, and then somehow Chris Myers ended up like sponging water on my head at the pool as well all the time, and like giving me a pep talk between each lap. But so I would hand my pack and my ice bandana to Payson. He would this as soon as I entered the aid station, because it's like a horseshoe, and the CTS tent is near the start finish. So if you can cut across, the crew can cut across from the beginning of the aid station to the start finish, and then to the CTS tent. So I'd hand my pack and my ice bandana Payson. He would run back to the CTS tent and prep them again, like empty it and put the new stuff in. And then one CTS coach would hand me a fresh ice bandana that I would use just for the turnaround. So just for the aid station. Another CTS coach would sponge me with water from a bucket. And then John would run alongside me the whole loop until I got to the CTS tent, pouring water on me and handing me an electrolyte bottle that I would drink as I was running through. And then by the time I had done the loop and was back at the CTS tent, all it was get in the pool. Somebody would spray sunscreen on me while they're like putting water all over me while I'm in the ice pool, and then get up, put my pack on, take off the ice bandana that was less comfortable, put on the ice bandana that I liked, that Payson had refilled, and then boom, we're out.
This reminds me. So I was listening to. Do you know the Boulder Boys show? Like Matt Daniels, Seth Rowan, the pod. Okay, so they did a recent recap on Havalina, and you and Seth had a great battle, obviously at Black Canyon. He was reflecting back to that day, and I think he was saying that now that he knows who you are, he kind of fears racing you at Western this coming year. But in that moment, I think he underestimated you because you were wearing sort of like, I think, an older pack, and you had like a hard flask bottle, and he's like, you're not winning this race without soft flasks, etc.
I didn't even have a hard flask bottle. I had like grocery store plastic water bottles. So I forgot I had prepared like I had 6 flasks with me. At all times during Black Canyon. So then I had prepared a second set to get at aid station, and then my sister, who was crewing for me, she would just like take the old ones and prep them for the next aid station, because there were 3 crewed aid stations. Yeah, so she could do the swap while I was running to the next one. But I left the other set of soft flasks in the fridge at the Airbnb, and only realized it when we got to Mayor. And so I was like, oh shoot, like I've only got these flasks. It's fine. We'll just refill them at the aid stations. But then I got to the first aid station. I was like, no, this is too slow. Like just stuff the water bottle in my pack. So instead of pouring out the bottle into my soft flasks, I just took on the plastic bottles. And actually it worked pretty well, because they're like cheap grocery store plastic bottles. So you could drink it, and then like it would crunch really small. It wasn't like the thick plastic like an Aquafina or something. And then I could just like put the crumpled ball of plastic bottle in my belt or my pack after I was done with it.
Yeah. So like to me, the contrasts here are fascinating, because like obviously you have this super dialed, professionalized coaching plan. The crewing is on point. Your mental game is on point. You're fit as hell. But then like some of the gear choices are just a little out of date. And like you're wearing Brooks Catamount shoes. Brooks Catamount in this era of trail super shoe saturation, you're wearing Brooks Catamounts.
Well, that's just
not even a Cascadia Elite.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have a pair of those. The first trail shoe I got was the Brooks Catamount 1. And I was like, oh, this one's good. And so I've just been running in it ever since. It's comfortable, and like I haven't gone down the rabbit hole of trying to like figure out what the best shoe for me is and like how like I can get something that's maybe a little bit faster. So I just stuck with what worked. It was comfortable. I knew I could run in it all day. So, and then the pack, but wearing a pack at Havalina, that was like a big part of my strategy. And I felt like it was going to be an advantage. I mean, I know it wouldn't be an advantage for everyone. Some people it's uncomfortable and like that would be a bad move. But for me, I like doing all my runs in packs, or like everything that's over 90 minutes. I wear a pack. It feels natural to me. Doesn't bother me. Like, and the extra weight. I know I need to drink a lot. Like I did get my sweat tested in the spring, and yes, I was sweating like 3 liters an hour. It was in like a temperature chamber, or like a heat chamber where they set it to like 90 degrees and 20% humidity, which was like average conditions for Western states. Which pretty similar to Havalina actually. So like I know I need to take in a ton of fluid. So I had 4 bottles of open fuel with me every lap. So that's like a high carb drink. And then, so 1 in the lower back pocket, 2 in the breast pockets, and then 1 in my hand. And then as I drank them, I would just refill 1 with water at each of the aid stations I went through, because I was quick. So, and then I had both water and carb drink, because I would just have the carb drink going out. And then, so that was 7 bottles, 7 500 milliliter flasks per lap, with each of the open fuel bottles has 60 grams of carbs in it and 500 milligrams sodium. So it's like, and then I could top off with gels. So that was like all I needed. And I could save time at the aid stations out on the course when I was doing stuff myself, because I had all the calories I needed, like, and I didn't have to like fiddle around with extra bottles with powder in them or pouring a packet in or anything like that.
Did you learn anything about yourself or about this sport after Javelina?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it was smooth, but I still learned a lot. I guess maybe I'm still processing and thinking about it, but it definitely, well, you said earlier, like after Black Canyon, I felt like the better you get, the more tools you have to get even better. And I feel that way about this race, and it definitely sets my expectations higher. And like, I expect to keep improving, because like I said, I still lack a lot of experience. And it's good that I was at Western States this year, even though I couldn't run, because I think I learned a ton there. And I'm not going to feel like a rookie or not like as much of a rookie when I run Western States next year. And also then add on to that like with a win at Havalina, I feel like I can compete at Western States too.
I don't know if you're aware of this. This was just an interesting stat that I pulled from the whole Golden Ticket series this year, but you and Tara Dower have almost had near identical trajectories on the circuit. So both second at Black Canyon.
Yeah.
And then you both won here at Havalina and set course records. That's wild.
Yeah.
So just throwing that stat out there, that's insane.
I think we were both under old course record at Black Canyon too. Is that true?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So bonkers.
Yeah.
In your case, again, just like thinking about the mindset you bring to this sport, if these things don't come as a surprise or a shock to you, how do you process success at these races?
Just because it's not a surprise doesn't mean it's not exciting and like really validating, and just like makes me really optimistic for, like, maybe this is one way I've been thinking about it, is like going into the race. Yes, I felt confident. I felt like I could do well. I expected to do well, but I was only thinking about this race because I was just, staying in the moment. Now that I've had a successful race here, it's like I'm taking that confidence that I had not only before, but like the extra confidence from after, and I'm projecting a little bit more into like future races. So, and that makes me excited just because I want to keep like doing cool races and having great experiences with the sport. And I feel like with each one of these days that I do well, I like get more of an opportunity to live a life of endurance sport that I really want to live. So.
I mean, let's go there. Like, just let's close up with sort of what's next. It is pretty cool that Open Fuel kind of got out ahead of things, and you're working with them as a nutrition partner. Like, kudos to them for being
I'm really
and kind of knowing your talent and your trajectory. Are you hoping to sign with a brand? It's like a shoe brand by the end of this year. Like, talk about like kind of hopes and expectations before the new year.
Yeah, really appreciative of Open Fuel that they like believed in me right away. And that's been just like a huge performance gain, because if you can dial in your nutrition, like versus my nutrition was probably subpar before that. So it's like kind of one of the best partnerships I could have had for this year. And then also CTS supported me as well. And that was another just clear performance gain right away, has led to my improvement. But yeah, for sure, I want to hopefully become a professional in the sport. That would be like a dream. I told you when I was little, I was dreaming of becoming a professional baseball player, but then pretty early, like, junior, senior year of high school, I figured that ship had sailed. And most people don't like if you're in team sports, like once you realize you're not going to be a professional, it's like game over. And you just kind of like stop. Versus, I think it's really cool that there's a culture of in endurance sport, like adults continuing to play outside. Like, and it doesn't matter that like 99.9% of them know they're not going to be a professional in the sport. It just has value in and of itself. And that's probably the reason that I've continued to improve since like up to age 30, where now somehow maybe I'll have the possibility of becoming a professional athlete, when for 10 plus years I had thought that was like no way, like it's over. But I would have done it anyway. Like I would have kept doing the sport anyway. And so like having a space where everybody's welcome to like go for it, and it's socially acceptable to like take yourself seriously and try to get better at your own level, whatever that is, that allowed me to just like keep putting pennies in the bank. And somehow I got to this point.
Amen, dude. Yeah. It's cool. We've had, there's a couple people we've had on the pod over the last few years that kind of mirror your perspective here. One that immediately comes to mind is Hayden Hawks. We've talked with him in the past, and similar, like before he wanted to be a pro runner, wanted to be, a pro baseball player, basketball player, football player, and just loves sport so much that, when things did come together around running, like that was just as good, at this point in life. Okay. So you want to be like, if the opportunities are, you want to make this your vocation. Like you want to be a pro runner.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know it will only be like a chapter, right? Like that's how professional sport works. But yeah, I'm having so much fun with it. I want to keep having fun. So if I can do that, and I'm tutoring now. I'm tutoring high school math students, just on the computer, a few nights a week, and I'll continue to do that because, like I said, it's a chapter, and then someday I'll be a teacher again and full time, and yeah. But hopefully, I can see where this takes me. If I can, it'd be cool.
Awesome. And I think you're so good, and you've put in results at important enough races where I don't think you would. I don't want to speak too soon, but I suspect that if you don't want to play the social media game as a pro, I don't think you would have to in order to get a contract. Which that I think would be, if that is liberating anyway, I don't think you would have to go that route. I think you're good enough to transcend that.
That is reassuring. I mean, like, it makes total sense to me that brands like want to have athletes who are like visible on social media with their products and everything, because it brings them sales. Like, of course, it's easy business move, but in some ways, like, I don't think of that as professional sport. And so I would be I would be reassured if in trail running there is like a distinct space for like professional sport that's dedicated to performance. You know, people go to a Major League Baseball game and they pay money to watch it because those are the best athletes at what they do, and that's entertaining for people. And so like that, if this is a real professional sport, then like that's the center of why people want to watch it, right?
Yeah, and I shouldn't be so extreme. I should probably walk back something I said. It's more like the have to. If you enjoy expressing yourself and communicating in a certain medium, go for it. Like I love reading Caleb Olson's Substack about the sport, and there are many athletes who use Instagram as a journal, and I consume that with so much enthusiasm. And there's obviously amazing photographers, videographers, etc. So it's more so like if you do want to communicate, you can, but there's not like the pressure to, you know, like force yourself onto a platform.
Yeah, that's liberating. That's good to know.
So what does your day-to-day look like now? You just moved to Bellingham.
Yeah. I love this place and good people here too. So like I said, I lived here from 2019 to 2021 and didn't really want to leave, but like had the teaching thing that I was interested in. And so that was a good decision to do that, but figured I'd be back here eventually. Yeah, my day to day, I mean, right now I'm recovering from Havalina. I'm going to be mostly on my bike for a couple weeks and just some unstructured training, dream up next season. And I'm tutoring, like I've got one this evening. So I'm tutoring calculus right now for a few different students. And so I can do some lesson prep in the morning or the afternoon, but then like get out on my bike, or eventually I'll get back into running training. And then tutoring is just in the evening. So yeah, it's good.
Where do you fall on the spectrum of being like monk-like versus social in training, but also just in day-to-day life? I'm
pretty introverted. Like I like running on my own. I train mostly alone, but I do like training with others too. And that was something that I was missing in New Jersey. I said, my one friend, Mike, we would run every once in a while. I mean, it was hard to coordinate schedules because we were both super busy. So we maybe ran once every 2 or 3 weeks. But other than that, I'm always alone training. But here I've like got, especially people that I can ride bikes with, because that's what I was doing when I was living here. I wasn't running, which is kind of a crime that I wasn't running when I lived here, because the trails are awesome. And I've gone back for Chuckanut my last 2 spring breaks. So maybe I'll do Chuckanut again. That'd be cool. It'd be cool to finally figure that one out. And it's just a fun one. But yeah, I mostly train alone, but I like training with a few other people. And yeah, I am pretty quiet and introverted by nature, but like I said, looking for balance.
Well, obviously, between now and June, the center of gravity for you training wise is Western States. But if you were to think out 2 to 3 years, do you have a set of priorities for what you want to go for or accomplish in the sport?
I mean, I want to compete at the biggest, most competitive races. That's like what I think is super fun. Like I said, I am super competitive, but I have this, I want to explore, I want to go places. And that's sort of like what gets me into it. But then but I could do that without racing. Right. And so in terms of racing, like, yeah, I really want to just run with the best and see what I could do. Like, I don't know how far I can go, but I want to find out. And so definitely Western States is like the race that really makes me dream right now. And I'd like to give that one as many goes as it takes to crush it. And hopefully I'll do well this year. But yeah, I would like to try like a bigger mountain ultra as well. That's something I really haven't done yet, but I think it could suit me pretty well. So,
Will, it's been a pleasure to get to know you here. Obviously, a massive congratulations on Havalina and just everything within this trajectory, this amazing trajectory the last year and a half. Excited about Western next year. And yeah, just wishing you the best. And thanks for spending all this time with us.
Thank you.